Ever wonder why you can't look away from that latest true crime documentary, even when it gives you nightmares? You tell yourself it's just one more episode, just one more case. But 3 hours later, you're still there, eyes locked on the screen, heart racing as another investigation unfolds. The victims' faces haunt you. The details replay in your mind when you're trying to fall asleep. And yet, the moment a new series drops, you're back for more. What if that obsession is doing more damage than you think? We've become a society entranced by murder, by disappearances, by the darkest corners of human nature. True crime has exploded from the fringes of tabloid journalism into a cultural phenomenon that dominates our streaming queues, our podcast libraries, our dinner conversations. It's everywhere. And we can't seem to get enough. But beneath the entertainment value, beneath the armchair detective work and the water cooler discussions, something more complicated is happening. Something we need to talk about. There's a reason you clicked on this video. The same reason millions of people around the world are right now listening to a podcast about a serial killer, or watching a documentary about a cold case, or scrolling through forums dedicated to unsolved mysteries. True crime speaks to something primal in us. It offers vicarious thrills without real danger. We get to experience the adrenaline, the fear, the suspense, all from the safety of our couches. Our brains light up with the same neural pathways that kept our ancestors alert to threats, except now those threats are carefully packaged, edited, and narrated with cinematic music. We're hardwired to pay attention to danger, and true crime content exploits that biological imperative perfectly. Then there's the puzzle, the mystery, the human need to make sense of chaos. Every true crime story is a riddle waiting to be solved, and we fancy ourselves the detectives. We pause the video to theorize. We rewind to catch details the investigators might have missed. We debate in comment sections about what really happened, who's guilty, what the evidence means. It gives us a sense of control in a world that often feels random and terrifying. Do you feel smarter when you figure out the twist before the reveal? Do you feel safer believing you'd never fall for the same tricks the victims did? That's part of the appeal too. True crime lets us believe we're different, more careful, more aware. We study these cases like survival manuals, convincing ourselves we're learning how to avoid becoming victims ourselves. It's an illusion of control, but it's a comforting one. And perhaps most seductively, true crime often comes wrapped in a neat moral package. The justice-fulfilled narrative. Good versus evil, detectives working tirelessly. The killer finally caught, justice served. These stories give us what real life so often denies: closure, resolution, the bad guy behind bars, and the world set right again. It feels good to watch justice happen, even if it's justice for crimes committed decades ago against people we never knew. This isn't new. Humans have always been fascinated by crime and punishment. Public executions once drew massive crowds. Penny dreadfuls and true crime magazines have existed for over a century. The genre has deep roots in our collective psyche. But something has changed. The accessibility has exploded. In the past, you had to seek out true crime content, buy a magazine, catch a specific TV show, read a particular book. Now it finds you. Algorithms learn your preferences and serve up an endless buffet of murder, mystery, and mayhem. Autoplay queues up the next episode before you've even decided if you want to keep watching. Podcasts have democratized the genre. Anyone with a microphone can start a true crime show, and thousands have. Some are meticulously researched and respectfully told. Others are sensationalized entertainment that treats real tragedies as content to be consumed and monetized. The barrier to entry is gone, and the market is saturated. Streaming platforms have turned true crime into prestige television. High production values, celebrity narrators, dramatic reenactments. These aren't grainy news segments anymore. They're cinematic experiences designed to keep you binging. Netflix, Hulu, HBO, Discovery Plus, they're all competing for your attention with increasingly elaborate true crime content. The genre has become an industry. A massive, profitable industry built on real people's worst moments. When did we stop seeing these as tragedies and start seeing them as entertainment? Here's where it gets uncomfortable. Every true crime story is someone's worst day, someone's murdered daughter, someone's missing sister, someone's traumatized family forced to relive their nightmare every time a new documentary or podcast covers their case. These aren't fictional characters, they're real people whose suffering has been packaged for our consumption. And we rarely think about that while we're watching. The victims become characters in a narrative. Their lives reduced to a few biographical details before we get to the good part, the crime itself. We learn more about the killer's psychology, their methods, their motives than we ever learn about who the victim really was. The violence becomes the focus. The humanity gets lost. Families of victims have spoken out about this. About the pain of seeing their loved ones' deaths turned into entertainment. About podcasters and filmmakers who never asked permission, never reached out, never considered the impact of dredging up these memories for public consumption. About the conspiracy theorists and amateur sleuths who harass them with theories and accusations. But beyond the direct impact on victims' families, there's a broader psychological cost to our collective obsession. Constant exposure to violent content changes how we see the world. Study after study has shown that heavy consumers of crime media, whether news or entertainment, tend to overestimate crime rates and perceive the world as more dangerous than it actually is. This is called mean world syndrome, and it's real. Do you feel less safe than you used to? Do you see threats everywhere? How much of that is reality, and how much is the hundreds of hours of true crime content you've consumed? The anxiety is real. The hypervigilance is real. The nightmares are real. We're marinating our brains in violence and trauma, and then wondering why we feel anxious and unsafe. There's also the desensitization factor. When you've heard about hundreds of murders, when you've seen countless crime scene photos, when you've listened to detailed descriptions of violence over and over, it starts to lose its impact. The horror becomes normalized. We need more shocking cases, more disturbing details, more extreme content to get the same emotional response. We're building up a tolerance to human suffering. And then there's the way true crime content can warp our understanding of justice and safety. We start to see the world through the lens of these stories. We become suspicious of everyone. The friendly neighbor becomes a potential serial killer. The helpful stranger becomes a possible predator. We're training ourselves to see danger in every interaction, to trust no one, to assume the worst. Is that really how you want to live? Here's what we need to ask ourselves. Why are we so drawn to other people's trauma? Is it really about justice and awareness, or is it about entertainment? Are we actually learning anything useful? Or are we just feeding an addiction to drama and fear? When we share that latest true crime podcast with friends, are we spreading awareness or spreading trauma? The true crime community often justifies the obsession by claiming it serves a purpose. It keeps cold cases in the public eye. It holds law enforcement accountable. It educates people about safety, and sometimes that's true. Some true crime content has genuinely helped solve cases or brought attention to injustices. But let's be honest, that's not why most of us are watching. We're not watching because we're passionate about criminal justice reform. We're watching because it's thrilling, because it's addictive, because it makes us feel something in a world where we're often numb to everything else. And the industry knows this. They're not making this content to serve justice, they're making it to get views, downloads, and subscriptions. The more sensational, the better. The more shocking, the more successful. The victims and their families are secondary to the story, and the story is secondary to the profit. When you queue up that next true crime documentary, are you thinking about the real people involved, or are you just looking for your next fix? The psychological toll of our true crime obsession extends beyond individual anxiety and desensitization. It's shaping our culture in profound ways. We're creating a society that's simultaneously fascinated by and terrified of violence. We're teaching ourselves to see the world as a dangerous place full of predators and victims. We're normalizing surveillance, suspicion, and fear as reasonable responses to everyday life. Young people are growing up consuming this content at unprecedented rates. Teenagers are falling asleep to murder podcasts. Kids are watching true crime YouTube videos. What does it do to a developing brain to be constantly exposed to detailed accounts of violence, manipulation, and death? We don't fully know yet, but we're running the experiment in real time. There's also the way true crime content often reinforces harmful stereotypes and biases. Certain victims get more coverage than others. Pretty, young, white women dominate the genre, while victims of color, sex workers, and homeless individuals are largely ignored. This missing white woman syndrome isn't just a media problem. It reflects and reinforces societal biases about whose lives matter and whose deaths deserve attention. The way criminals are portrayed matters too. The glamorization of certain killers, the deep dives into their psychology that sometimes border on sympathetic. The way their names become more famous than their victims. All of this sends messages about what we value and who we remember. Have you noticed that you can name more serial killers than you can name their victims? And then there's the impact on our relationships and communities. When we're constantly consuming content about betrayal, deception, and violence, it becomes harder to trust, harder to connect, harder to see the good in people. We start viewing everyone through a lens of suspicion, always looking for red flags, always waiting for the other shoe to drop. That's no way to build a healthy society. This isn't a call to completely abandon true crime content. That's not realistic, and it's probably not necessary. But it is a call for more awareness, more intentionality, and more responsibility, both from creators and consumers. If you're going to engage with true crime content, ask yourself why. What are you getting from it? Is it genuinely educational, or is it just feeding anxiety and fear? Are you learning something valuable, or are you just consuming trauma for entertainment? Consider the source. Is the content respectful to victims and their families? Did the creators reach out to those affected? Is the focus on justice and understanding, or on sensationalism and shock value? Your views and downloads support these creators. Make sure you're supporting the ones who are doing it right. Set boundaries. If true crime content is affecting your sleep, your anxiety levels, or your worldview, it's okay to step back. You don't have to watch every documentary or listen to every podcast. You don't have to know the details of every horrific case. It's okay to protect your mental health. Diversify your media diet. If true crime is all you're consuming, you're getting a distorted view of reality. Balance it with content that shows the good in humanity, the beauty in the world, the stories of resilience and hope. Crime is real, but it's not the whole story. And maybe most importantly, remember the humanity. These are real people, real families, real trauma. If you're going to engage with these stories, do so with respect and empathy. Don't let the entertainment value overshadow the human cost. Here's what we need to face. Our true crime obsession says something about us that we might not want to acknowledge. It reveals our capacity for voyeurism, our willingness to consume other people's suffering as entertainment, our tendency to prioritize our own emotional experiences over the dignity and privacy of victims and their families. It shows how easily we can become desensitized to violence when it's packaged the right way. How quickly we can forget that behind every case is real pain, real loss, real people whose lives were destroyed. And it demonstrates how an industry can exploit our psychological vulnerabilities for profit, feeding us an endless stream of trauma and fear while we convince ourselves it's educational or empowering. The question isn't whether true crime content should exist. The question is, what is it doing to us? Are we becoming more informed and safety conscious, or more anxious and paranoid? Are we developing empathy for victims and understanding of systemic issues, or are we just getting our fix of vicarious thrills? Are we contributing to justice, or are we contributing to the commodification of tragedy? These are uncomfortable questions, but they're necessary ones. Because right now, we're in the middle of a cultural moment where murder is entertainment, where tragedy is content, where someone's worst day is our evening viewing. And we're not talking enough about what that means or what it's costing us. You can't unknow what you now know. You can't unsee the pattern. Every time you click on that next true crime video, you'll think about this. Every time you queue up another murder podcast, you'll wonder about the cost. And that's good. That awareness is important. You get to decide what role true crime plays in your life. You get to decide whether you're consuming it mindfully or compulsively. You get to decide whether you're supporting content that treats victims with dignity or content that exploits tragedy for views. The true crime industry will keep producing content as long as we keep consuming it. The algorithms will keep recommending it as long as we keep clicking. The cycle will continue unless we, as individuals, make different choices. So what will you choose? Will you keep feeding the obsession, or will you step back and examine what it's really doing to you? Will you continue consuming every piece of true crime content that crosses your path, or will you be more selective about what you let into your mind? The power is yours. The choice is yours. But you can't say you weren't warned about the cost. If this case kept you thinking, subscribe. Another mystery unfolds next week. But this time, the mystery isn't about who committed the crime. It's about why we can't stop watching.